So you just booked a cruise. 7 nights, ocean view cabin, all-inclusive deal, and you're feeling pretty good about it. Here's the thing though, that ship you're about to board has a flag on the back from a country it will never actually visit, and that one detail tells you almost everything about how this industry actually works. Royal Caribbean posted $4.3 billion in net income in 2025 on a single fleet of ships. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how they do it, why the ticket you bought is basically the least profitable thing they sell, and what actually happens to a $2 billion ship when it gets too old. The last part is the one most people never think about, and it's genuinely wild. Here's the big thing to keep in mind as we go through this. A cruise ship isn't really a vacation product. It's a floating economic system designed so that once you step on board, every single dollar you spend goes back to the same company. Hold that thought, because it's going to keep coming up. Let's start with the part that almost nobody knows, and it's the foundation of the entire business model. The modern practice of registering ships in a foreign country began in the 1920s in the United States, when ship owners seeking to serve alcohol to passengers during Prohibition registered their ships in Panama. That's where this whole thing started. Not for tax reasons, not for labor reasons, just to pour drinks on a boat. To get around the Prohibition laws, some US-based passenger steamship lines began registering their ships in Panama, with the first 2 US vessels reflagging to Panamanian registry in 1922. And then something interesting happened. Operators found labor to be cheaper, restrictions less onerous, and tax implications reduced. When Prohibition ended in 1933, some US operators never went back, and the practice caught on and became commonplace. Today, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian all have their headquarters in Miami, but their ships are registered in places like the Bahamas and Panama. A ship's owners may elect to register in a foreign country to avoid the regulations of the owner's country, which may have stricter safety standards, and to reduce operating costs, avoiding higher taxes, and bypassing laws that protect the wages and working conditions of mariners. 90% of cruise ships that call at a US port have a foreign flag, according to the Cruise Line International Association. So the companies are American, the executives are American, the headquarters are American. But on paper, the ships are not. And that distinction is worth billions of dollars a year in taxes and labor costs they simply don't pay. It's not a loophole in the sneaky sense. It's been the standard operating model for over 100 years. They just never stopped doing it because it works so well. Now here's where the real money starts, because the flag trick is just the foundation. What happens once you're actually on the ship is a completely different layer of the machine. The ticket price you paid? That's almost a loss leader. The cruise lines will happily fill a cabin at $499 for a week because an empty cabin makes $0 and a passenger on board makes money every hour they're awake. Tickets account for roughly 62% of revenue, but the onboard spending, drinks, specialty restaurants, spa treatments, shore excursions, that's where the actual profit margin lives. And to make sure those cabins are never empty, load factors regularly hit 110%. Ships are filled past their official capacity by counting double occupancy cabins with 3 or 4 guests. Get the body on the ship first. The selling starts the moment you walk through the door, and I mean the moment. The very first day on board is the single most important sales day of the entire voyage. Every department, drinks packages, spa, specialty dining, the casino, is pushing hard on day 1, before you've had time to settle in and get comfortable saying no. And then there are the sea days. The days with no port stop, no excursion to distract you, nothing to look at but the ocean. Those are not accidental gaps in the itinerary. Those are the most profitable days on the ship, because the casino, the shops, and the spa all spike when passengers have nowhere else to be. The route you sail is not chosen for the scenery, it's engineered for your spending behavior. Speaking of the casino, this is where it gets genuinely interesting, and if you've seen the casino video on this channel, you already know how the math works inside those rooms. But on a cruise ship, there's an extra layer. The casino doesn't open when you leave port. It opens the moment the ship clears into international waters, where gambling regulations from any individual country no longer apply. And it closes again the second the ship approaches a port. It's the second largest revenue department on the ship, and it operates in a legal zone that basically doesn't exist on land. A floating casino that turns on and off based on where the law ends. That's not a coincidence. That's the whole design. Now here's something that most passengers genuinely don't realize is happening to them months before they ever board. Royal Caribbean's own CFO has said publicly that guests who pre-book activities before departure spend 2.5 times more on board than guests who don't. 2.5 times. So when you get those emails 6 months out, plan your cruise, book your excursions early, reserve your specialty dining now, that's not customer service. That's a revenue strategy. The goal is to get you mentally committed and financially invested before you even leave home, because once you've already paid for the cooking class and the wine tasting, you're primed to keep spending when you arrive. Your wallet gets opened twice, once before you leave, and once every day you're on the ship. And then there are the private islands. This is one of the best hidden money machines in the entire tourism industry. And it ties directly back to that core idea we started with, the captive customer who has nowhere else to spend. When your ship docks at a private island, the kind owned and operated by the cruise line itself, every single dollar you spend stays with the company. The parasailing, the beach chairs, the massages, the food, the drinks. There are no local vendors, no independent restaurants, no competing businesses. It's a resort that happens to be shaped like a beach. The local experience is a fully controlled retail environment with palm trees, and it's enormously profitable, to the point where some of these island operations have paid out over $220 million in dividends to their parent company over a decade. That's from a beach. Compare that to what happens at actual port stops, and this is where the economics get a little uncomfortable. Cruise lines typically pay what's called a head tax to the ports they visit, often somewhere between $4 and $15 per passenger. And when passengers book shore excursions through the cruise line, the line keeps up to 70% of that revenue, passing only a fraction to the local operator. Researchers have found that port cities frequently spend more on infrastructure and facilities to accommodate cruise ships than they actually earn back from them. The economic boost that cruise lines promise to local communities is, in most cases, far smaller than advertised. The ship brings thousands of people to your town for 6 hours and then takes most of the money with it when it leaves. Here's a number that puts all of this in perspective. Royal Caribbean posted $4.3 billion in net income in 2025 on total revenues of $17.9 billion. They did that with roughly 179,000 cabins across their fleet. Hilton, by comparison, manages over 1.3 million hotel rooms worldwide and earned around $1.46 billion in net income over the same period. Royal Caribbean made roughly 3 times more profit with a fraction of the rooms. The reason is exactly what we've been talking about: the captive audience. A hotel guest can walk across the street for dinner. A cruise passenger cannot. Every meal, every drink, every activity. The ship is the only option. That's not a hospitality business. That's a controlled economic environment. Now, and I promised we'd get here, what actually happens to a ship at the end of its life? Because this is the part that almost nobody thinks about, and it's the perfect ending to everything we've covered. The newest mega ships like Icon of the Seas, cost around $2 billion to build and are designed to operate for roughly 25 to 30 years. After that, they don't get retired to a museum. They get driven onto a beach, literally. Large supertankers, car ferries, and ocean liners are beached on the mudflats during high tide. As the tide recedes, manual laborers move onto the beach to dismantle each ship, salvaging what they can and reducing the rest to scrap. The Alang Ship Breaking Yard is the world's largest ship breaking yard, responsible for dismantling more than a third of retired freight and cargo ships salvaged from around the world, located on the Gulf of Khambhat in Gujarat, India. Workers with cutting torches take apart these ships piece by piece, and the steel gets sold by the ton. A $2 billion floating city ends its life as construction-grade scrap metal, priced out at a few $100s per ton. The entire vessel, the restaurants, the theaters, the water slides, the casino, becomes rebar. And then there's the final twist, the one that makes the whole model almost poetic in its irony. When COVID hit in 2020, the cruise industry went completely dark. No passengers, no revenue, ships anchored offshore for months. Carnival alone posted a loss of $10.2 billion that year, and when the US government started issuing emergency relief packages to struggling American industries, the cruise lines got nothing, not a dollar. Because they're not American, not on paper. The same flag of convenience strategy that saved them billions in taxes and labor costs over decades meant they didn't qualify for federal relief when they needed it most. In 2020 and 2021, an unprecedented number of cruise liners, 15 in total, were scrapped, far more than in any comparable period. The ships that couldn't wait for the industry to recover got sent to Along early. The loophole that made them rich left them completely exposed the moment the system stopped working. So here's what you actually bought when you booked that cruise. You bought access to a floating casino and shopping mall that chose its legal address based on where it pays the least, hires its crew from wherever labor is cheapest, gets you on board at near cost, and then charges you for everything from that point forward because you have nowhere else to go. The airline, as we covered in another video on this channel, is a bank that happens to fly. The hotel brand is a franchise that prints its own currency with loyalty points, and the cruise line is a casino that sails. If you want to understand how the hotel side of this actually works, and why cruise ships make 3 times the profit per room that the biggest hotel chains in the world do, that video is right there. Watch it next. And if something in this video genuinely surprised you, drop it in the comments. I'm curious which part lands hardest, because the answer is usually not the one I expect.